Welcome back to another episode of Local Search Tuesdays. This week's video is another longer one because I'm sharing my entire presentation from another recent conference. I know. This is 3 weeks of longer episodes in a row, but I had a really busy week recently. I presented at 3 different conferences in 3 days, and as always, I wanted to share the presentation so that more people had access. This one's about 45 minutes long, so make sure you're comfortable. Let's get right to it. Welcome to the Fast and Furious Guide to SEO for Used Car Dealers. You guys are watching me on my own video series, so I don't need to tell you to go to my blog to watch the video that you're already watching. But hey, if you're catching this somewhere else and not on our blog, you can always go to our blog every Tuesday and catch these videos. Now, I speak at a ton of conferences, and I've seen a lot of bad speakers in my time, and they kind of stand there behind the podium and they're turning their back to the crowd and kind of reading their own slides, and the slides are just white with black Arial font and tons of bullet points. And because of that, it's not very entertaining to watch. And I firmly believe that bullet points kill kittens. So this will be an entirely bullet point free presentation because, you got to protect the little cute kitties. There's always a movie theme when I do presentations because I was a film major and I absolutely love movies. And I love to share my love of movies with my love of SEO. Now, I typically pick one movie for every year in the last 50 years, but today we're going back 59 years because I'm a massive James Bond fan. We got to have all the James Bond cars in there too, So we've got 125 total references to car movies this time around. So any movie where cars played a significant role in the plot of the movie. And there's always attribution over to the side. So if it's something you haven't seen and you want to go figure out what it is to watch it later, it's always in the corner. So let's kick this off. Why the long face? Are you spending too much time looking up at other competitors that rank higher than you in local searches? Are you wondering, dude, where's my site? In fact, sometimes you feel like you're hanging on for dear life to the rankings that you've got, and you might even feel like you're starting to get murdered by your competitors. I know a lot of you don't understand SEO and how it works, so today I'm going to give you a peek underneath Google's hood so you'll understand the signals that matter and how to optimize those signals. And in fact, I've got a lot of tips that are for your eyes only. Hopefully the James Bond fans out there are laughing at my James Bond joke. I'm going to show you how to get your site to stand out and grab the attention of potential customers. And just like a fat guy in a little coat, I'm going to squeeze in a ton of info today for you in the next half hour. Now, I've been helping car dealers with website visibility for over 14 years, and I started out working with used car dealers. So I've got a lot of love for the independents out there. And luckily, used car dealers can totally dominate the new car dealers because they can optimize their site 100% for used cars. And most other used car dealers aren't doing SEO, so they can beat their competitors as well. Because if nobody else is doing SEO in your market, except for you, or maybe you and a couple other people, well, then you're going to win. You're going to rise to the top of search results. And it's your most important marketing channel. You're going to get more leads and more sales as a result of showing up well in Google than anything else you can do for marketing, because every sale is going to start with a search on Google. In most markets, customers don't use those third-party sites like AutoTrader and Cars.com and Car Gurus to find cars. They're going to want to buy from a local dealership because they still want to go sit in the car and smell it and touch it and test drive it. Customers want to buy from a local dealership. So that just means in today's world, if you're not showing up well in local searches, you're going to lose. You've got to beat all of the dealerships in your market, not just the other used car dealers, but the new car guys as well, because they're selling used cars. And right now it's a used car market because of the chip shortage. We know that customers are going to shop around. They're not going to buy from the first dealership that they find online. So you need to have the best answer to the question that customer is asking, but you also need to have an awesome website experience where your site's easy to use and they find all their information and you stand out so that they're going to remember you and come back to you. It's important to remember that SEO is not cheap. You're paying for butts and seats doing work. It's not something that can be automated. In fact, if you're not spending at least, $2,500, $3,000 a month, you're probably not getting very good SEO. There's a lot of providers out there that'll sell you SEO for $500 a month, and you're maybe getting an hour or two of work. That's not going to cut it. You've got to invest. And again, it's your most important marketing channel. So why wouldn't you invest? It's not really that hard, but it's just really time intensive. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to do good SEO. And it's not something you can do for a little bit and stop. It's like king of the hill. You're always fighting the battle to either get to the top. And then once you get to the top, you got to stay at the top, because then there's nowhere to go but down. So you've got to always be pushing out the right signals to Google to maintain that visibility. If you stop optimizing those important signals, you're just going to start dropping out of results, and then you'll have to fight back even harder once your competitors overtake you. Another way to look at it, doing SEO is kind of like owning a car. Even after you completely pay the car off, it's not like the car is free. You still have to put gas into it. You still have to get oil changes. You still got to change tires. You still have to continually put effort into that machine to keep it running. I want to point out, as a dealer, or really as any local business, you really shouldn't judge the SEO success of your efforts in digital marketing by how you rank for a handful of vanity keywords. Most people really only care about how they show up for 5 or 6 phrases. But the thing is, that doesn't tie into your bottom line. Ranking doesn't equal selling more cars or selling more of whatever you sell. It doesn't tie into your bottom line at all. In fact, just because you rank for something doesn't even mean that you're showing up in searches for it, because maybe you rank for phrases that humans aren't actually typing into Google. The other big problem with tracking rankings is customers are going to see different results than what you see, because their results are going to be based on their physical location and the personalization of how they've searched in the past. Being successful at SEO means you get more traffic. That's how you judge the success of SEO. Are you getting more traffic, and are you getting more leads? And stop worrying so much about near me searches. People don't really search for a car dealer near me anymore. They understand if they're searching on mobile, they're going to get results that are nearby anyway. And you can't really optimize for near me when we're talking car dealers, because as soon as someone specifies that search, if they did happen to search for a Ford dealer near me tells Google their intent is to find something physically close in the real world. If you're not physically close to them, the guys that are close to them are going to beat you in that search. Customers don't really search that way, though. So it's not something I would suggest losing any sleep over or thinking about at all. And if they do search for it, like I said, it's real world proximity, and you can't optimize for real world location. I can't talk today. I'm so sorry. Most used car dealers don't have an internet manager or a marketing manager or somebody in-house to handle their SEO. If you do have somebody in-house, this presentation is going to show you exactly what you need to do. But if you're working with a vendor or thinking about working with a vendor, you're going to know exactly what to ask that vendor and exactly what to look for to make sure that you're getting something that's worth the money that you're spending. Now, keep in mind, with all the stuff I'm talking about, there are no silver bullets. You can't just pick 1 or 2 things and get great results. SEO works because of the cumulative effect of all of the things I'm going to talk about over time. If we boil Google down to a really simple concept, though, really at the simplest level, Google is just pattern detection. Google wants to see certain signals that specify that a site should rank high. So when we're doing SEO, we're really just improving your digital footprint so that you have a better pattern for Google to assess. Most SEO vendors that you're going to talk to do what's called traditional or regular SEO, including a lot of the automotive SEO vendors. They're just doing regular SEO. But as a car dealer, you need what's called local SEO, because Google's local algorithm is a different algorithm, and it assesses and evaluates additional signals. So if we were to kind of create a Venn diagram and look at the signals that matter for local versus the signals that matter for regular SEO, there's some overlap in the middle. So the regular SEO you're probably getting from the regular run-of-the-mill vendor. The green bit in the middle that overlaps with the local SEO signal, that's what's really benefiting your dealership. The rest is not really going to make that much of a difference. Where if you're working with a vendor or have someone in-house that really understands local, 100% of the effort is benefiting your dealership. Now, that local algorithm is more complicated because of the fact that we have to worry about additional signals that don't matter in traditional SEO. If I'm going to go in and do a search for anything related to used cars, those results are automatically going to be pulling from my local area. Look at this example right here. I searched for used cars, and all we get right there in the map pack are things that are within a mile of my physical location right here in my office. The local algorithm is going to serve search results. It's going to populate the Google search results page in several different locations. It's important to understand where the local algorithm applies. The most obvious place is that map pack where you've got the map and the 3 results underneath, or on mobile, sometimes it's just 2 results, but that's the clearest indicator that the local algorithm is at play. So anytime you see a map pack, you know that's Google's local algorithm. Now you can also click view all at the bottom of the map pack, and that takes you to the local finder page. That's also Google's local algorithm. Customers could also search directly inside of Google Maps. It looks very similar to the local finder page. That's also the local algorithm at play. And then below that map pack, in the regular quote unquote Google search results, they're actually not standard results. They're still localized. So even though they look like standard search results, they're still going to be localized organic results. If you need help understanding how local search works, I like to use pizza delivery as an example. You can go watch a little bit more in-depth explanation at that video. But at a high level, if you were to search only 2 words in Google, pizza delivery, at your office, you'd get a set of results that's pizza spots right by the office. But then if you go home and do the same search, you get different results because your location has changed. Even though you didn't enter any sort of different phrase, you're using the same 2 words in both locations, you get different results because Google understands that location is important to that search query. So that explains how it works. If you want to explain why you need it, really simple back of the bar napkin math explains it. So let's say, for a simple example, again, watch this video if you want a more in-depth example, especially if you're in a larger metro area, more competitive area. You've got to watch the video because I don't have time to go into it. But at a simple level, let's say there are 5 new car dealers and 15 used car dealers in one city. There's only 13 spots on page 1 Google search results between the 10 organic links and the 3 links in the map pack. But you're going to have Auto Trader, Cars.com, Car Gurus, a few sites like that in there. So really, there's probably about 8 spots on page 1 that a dealership could show in. So with 20 dealers fighting for 8 spots, that means 10 dealerships won't make it to page 1 search results, and a couple will be all the way back on page 3 where nobody sees them. But most of you are in a more crowded metro, so watch the video because a lot of times you're looking at 200 or 300 competitors all fighting for just 8 spots, and that's why SEO is so darn important. You should pay attention to an annual study called the Local Search Ranking Factor Study. They take the top 35 to 40 worldwide experts in local SEO and send out a pretty in-depth questionnaire about signals and factors that matter for rankings, because these people do this day in and day out, and they're always tweaking things and testing things, and they have a pretty good handle on what's going to affect visibility. So when you ask those same questions and then aggregate the answers from all of the top experts in the world, you get a pretty good handle on what matters. It's basically the guide for what signals you need to work on when you're doing local SEO. So you get a pie chart that shows the factors that matter for showing up in the map pack or in Google Maps, and you get another pie chart that shows the factors that matter for showing up in the localized organic listing. So I'm going to walk through these so you'll have a better understanding of how they work and what you need to do. So let's start with talking about website content. A lot of people, especially within the automotive vertical, have fallen into the cadence of equating content with doing SEO, because it's hard to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that's either in the code of your site or even other websites linking to your site, but it's really easy to see content. So vendors have taken the path of least resistance and just do as little as possible for the money that you pay them. And they kind of equate giving you a blog post or a page on your site as doing SEO. And they just churn out a bunch of content with no real goal or no real strategy. And the problem is Google doesn't really care how much content you have. Google cares that the content you have is really good content. So quality is what's important. And it's important to understand that you need to stand out. You don't want the same generic stuff that's on all of your competitors' websites. So make sure that your content's actually about your dealership and why you're awesome, and also about the local area so people can very clearly see that you are located where you're located. Because remember, people are shopping around in the local area. You need to stand out from all of the other competitors. One way we like to test the content of a website, if you were to change the name of the dealership and the name of the city that you're located in, could you take that homepage content and put it on another dealership's website on the other side of the country? If it would still work, then that probably means your content's not very unique and not really about your dealership. You should probably do something about it. Another thing you should test with your content, Google wants to see content that is conversational. It should sound like something that you would say face to face to a person that just walked through the front door. So if you physically read it out loud, grab another person at the dealership, read that content out loud to them and see, does it sound conversational, like something you would say? Or does it sound awkward and weird and stuffed full of the same phrases? You can really tell if your content is great or not when you read it out loud. Another thing that you should boil down and really kind of get stuck in your head, Google's pattern detection, and it wants to see great patterns. But if you want to show up as a search result for a particular phrase that somebody typed in, then you need a page on your website that's about that concept. And that page needs to be the best answer to the question that that searcher is asking. And then once you've got that awesome content, you need to optimize it for the local area to make it clear to Google, hey, this is what this content is about, and this is where I'm located. Google's kind of like a curious toddler. It wants to know more about everything that it sees. So you kind of need to hold Google's hand with your website and make things painfully obvious, like idiot-proof the content of your site. And that's why you do optimization. So here are the things you need to do on each page when you optimize each page. First, optimize the title tag. It's what shows up in the tab above where you type in your URL. It's also what populates the blue link when you show up as a search result in Google. You should never have your business name first because you're the only dealership named that. So put your important keyword phrase and your city and state in your title tag. Now, across all these elements, remember it's important to have the same keyword phrase. Now, the second one you need to worry about is the H1 heading. It's the big, thick headline that's at the top of the page. It should have the same keyword phrase. It should have your city and state. It should be a little bit more conversational, explain what that page is about. Your content should already be awesome and about you in the local area, so you probably won't have to do much with the page content, but image alt text is also important. It's a descriptor that goes into the image embed code. And it's important for Google to see that image alt text. A lot of people don't do much with it. So you can really outpace local competitors by optimizing that image alt text. You can also update the URL for the pages on your site. All the platforms allow you to do this. So when you can include that same keyword and your location keywords in the URL for the page, it helps boost your relevance. It's also important to optimize your meta description. Now, the meta description doesn't matter for ranking, but the meta description is what makes the text or what populates the text in sorry, I can't speak English today. It populates the gray text underneath your blue link when you show up as a search result. So you want to think of it like an advertisement and write something really compelling that's going to help you get more clicks. So make sure it's got that keyword phrase and location phrase. You want to make sure when you're optimizing that you're paying attention to how your customers are actually searching. Being in automotive for a long time, you really start to use the jargon and the terminology that we all understand because we've been in automotive forever, but customers don't use that terminology when they're searching. So you want to optimize for the way that people search. My favorite example here is that dealers like to say they sell pre-owned vehicles because it just sounds nicer, but customers search for used cars. So if a dealer makes the mistake of optimizing and just using the phrase pre-owned vehicles throughout their site, they're missing out on the lion's share of the traffic. In fact, if we use Google's own keyword preview tool inside of AdWords, we could see that there's only about 2,900 searches a month for pre-owned vehicles, but there's 823,000 searches a month for used cars. So definitely optimize for the right phrases. It's also important to have a blog and make sure that you're posting on a regular basis because there's a difference between the kind of content that goes in the main section of your site and the kind of content that goes on your blog. And it's also incredibly helpful to make your blog a local destination and boost your exposure to potential customers, because if everything on your website and your blog was about selling cars, you're only going to show up as a search result when someone is looking to buy a car right now, which is typically going to be a really narrow focus on all of the potential customers in your area. So creating localized content is going to help you show up in search results for people that aren't looking to buy yet, but you get brand recognition and they'll know about you before they're ready to buy. So it's almost like putting up a billboard on the freeway that somebody drives by every day on their way to work. And 2 or 3 months from now, when they're ready to buy a car, they're more likely to call you because they've seen your billboard. So that localized blog content is really important to add. In fact, for the dealers that we work with, half of the blog posts are about the dealership and half of the blog posts are just about the local area. So if you've never done this before and you need some ideas, I created a video that shows 10 really awesome ideas for localized blog content that you can use as a springboard to come up with your own concepts and things to talk about on your own blog. Now, dealers always want to show up in nearby cities, or dealers that are located in the suburbs want to show up when people search for the main city in the metro. But it's important to understand that you've got to have a solid SEO foundation before you try to expand and show up somewhere that you're not located, because physical proximity in the real world matters to Google's algorithm. So own your backyard first. Make sure that you do enough good SEO so that you show up really well for searches that are based in your exact town where you're physically located before you try to expand and show up in nearby areas. Now, let's move on and talk about links. Links that are inbound to your site, links from other websites that point to your site, are really heavily weighted. Now, it used to be a numbers game back in the day, but Google figured out that it really shouldn't be just about the numbers and that links should be relevant to your site. The other sites should have a reason to link to you. And because we're talking about local SEO and showing up better in local results, we need to look at the local algorithm. And that local algorithm really highly values links from other local websites. The good news is if you get involved in the local community, it's really easy to get local links. And most car dealerships are already involved in the local community and they're already philanthropic. So it's typically pretty easy for car dealers to get some good local links. The problem is getting links is a tough process. It's difficult to find the opportunities and it's really time consuming to do the research and then do the outreach and find out who you need to talk to and then talk to the right person and get them to add that link. So typically you're going to need to work with an SEO vendor if you're ready to go to that level and really do really solid SEO and have that link building. You're probably going to need an SEO partner to help you with link acquisition more than anything, just because it's so time consuming. Now, if you need some ideas for local links, I created a video a few months back. You can watch the video at that link right there and learn more about local links and some things that you can do. Now, when you do community outreach or you're involved in the community, you want to make sure that you're following up and asking those partners that you partnered with or the place that you volunteered for or did the sponsorship for, make sure you follow up and ask for that link and get that link. Now, we need to talk about reviews as well. Now, obviously, reviews help attract local customers because they want to check out and make sure that you're legitimate and you don't screw people over before they buy from you, but they're also weighted in Google's algorithm. And I know a lot of dealerships love to have a testimonials page, but honestly, that testimonials page is pretty worthless because customers know you're only going to put glowing 5-star reviews that say how amazing you are on your site. If you get a bad review, like a 1-star review that says you suck and I hate you, you're not going to put that review on your site. And customers know that. They want to read honest, unbiased reviews on third-party sites. So instead of having a testimonials page, have a testimonials page or a reviews page, but on that page say, hey, we know you'd rather trust the source. So why don't you go read what our customers are saying about you on these sites? And you can link out to the various sites that have reviews for your dealership. But you've got to have a solid, proactive reputation management process. You need to watch this video to see all the details, but I'm going to summarize here. Basically, you want to make sure you're making it easy so that customers don't have to figure out where to go or what to do to leave a review. And you want to make sure that you ask every customer to use your easy process. So typically, you're going to want to have a page on your site that has links. I walk through it in that whole video, so make sure you watch it. You want to make sure you've got more reviews than your competitors have, but not too many more, because if you get a whole lot more reviews than anybody else in town, human nature is going to tell most people that you might be faking those reviews if you've got significantly more. So you want to kind of tread that delicate balance between having more than your competitors, but not too many more. And let's face it, you're selling used cars. They're older, and in some cases a lot older. So they're going to break down. You're going to have problems. It doesn't mean that you're shady, but be open to the fact that you're going to get some bad reviews. And especially the cheaper your inventory skews, the more likely it is you're going to get some bad reviews. But don't stress out. A lot of research has shown that you don't actually want a perfect 5.0 review score. 4.3 to 4.6 is the ideal range where you look more real to people if you have a few bad reviews in there. So it's okay to not have a perfect score. A few bad reviews makes you look more legitimate. So don't stress out too much about it. But you want to make sure you respond to every review that you get, both the positive reviews and the negative reviews. And if you happen to get a bad review from someone that wasn't a customer, your best option is to leave a strategic response. And I walk through how to do it in that video right there, because most of the time Google's not going to remove a review just because you said they weren't a customer. Unless the review explicitly says they weren't a customer, Google's not taking it down. So a strategic response will help every person in the future that reads that bad review realize that it probably wasn't a real review and they won't pay attention to it. So let's finish up and talk about your Google My Business listing. It's your new homepage. It's the new first impression that you make. People don't have to go to your site to get your phone number or your address or see pictures or ask questions. They can do all of that in Google My Business now. It's also the thing that allows you to show up in the map pack or on Google Maps. So it's vitally important. You want to make sure you fill out everything that you can fill out, but make sure that you don't add extra keywords to your dealership name. You can actually get penalized by adding keywords. So make sure that the business name is just the actual name of the dealership. You want to make sure that you add what's called UTM tracking to your website link, because any clicks that happen on mobile devices or any clicks that happen where people are very privacy centric and that referral information doesn't get passed to Google Analytics, Google just drops that traffic into direct. So a lot of the traffic that you're getting that's classified as direct is actually organic search traffic. And if you go watch this video, it explains how to use UTM tracking to force Google Analytics to attribute that traffic correctly so that you get credit for all the SEO work that you're doing. Now, it's okay to use a tracking number in Google My Business, where in the past it wasn't always okay. So watch the video, but at a high level, you want to put your tracking number as the primary number and then your actual local number as an alternate number, so Google can see that you're actually a local business and it matches up with other numbers that it sees online. You want to make sure you're picking the right categories. Category selection is really important and really influences how your Google My Business listing shows up in search results. And there's 10 category slots available, and there's more than 10 categories that you could choose. So go watch the video. It walks you through how to be strategic about what you're going to choose. Now, if you ever have problems with your Google My Business listing, GMB support isn't really that responsive. They're very backed up. It takes a long time. So there is a Google My Business community forum. You can go leave a new post there, and there are volunteers that spend time there that are invited to be in a program called Product Experts. And those product experts are directly connected with the Google My Business team. So if there's a problem, they can escalate directly to Google My Business and skip the whole support queue and get you some help. You also want to make sure you're uploading high resolution, professionally shot photos to your Google My Business listing, and make sure you're using Google Posts. Now, I don't have a lot of time to talk about them because I'm trying to squeeze in a lot of information. So go watch the video that I did for Moz. It's called Whiteboard Friday. It's a series that they do. And I did an entire 15-minute video all about Google Posts and what you need to do. But they're really important because they're basically free ads that show up in Google search results. Most dealers are going to go in and post the same social crap that they post on Facebook or Twitter. That stuff doesn't work. Make sure that everything that you do on a Google post is promotional, whether it's a sales special or something that tells people why you're awesome and why they need to click on that post to learn more. Sharing something that's like a blog post or the kind of junk that you'd put on social media doesn't work. And success has almost nothing to do with the content of the full post, because nobody sees that content unless they click on the thumbnail. So you got to be really careful about what shows in the thumbnail image and what text is truncated to show up in those couple of lines of text underneath that thumbnail image. The problem is cropping is really wonky. You want to make sure that you don't crop out important elements or text that's in that image. So for better control over that thumbnail, I have created a Google My Business Google Posts image cropping guide that you can download the Photoshop guide at that link right there. And it looks like this. Anything that's in that white grid is what shows up in the thumbnail, and the full image shows up whenever they click the thumbnail to see the full Google post. You also need to pay attention to the questions and answers section that started showing up about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. It allows anyone in the community to ask you a question, and anyone in the community can answer that question for you. That should terrify you. The big problem here is customers think that it's instant messaging, but it's not. It's actually community discussion, but most businesses don't know that it's there. So customers are asking a question they think they're going to get a quick response to, and then they get ghosted and never hear anything. Another cool thing is you're allowed and even encouraged to ask your own questions. So load your own questions and then answer your own questions and set up a pre-site FAQ section. It's a much better experience for potential customers, especially because Google will automatically supply the answer to a question as a customer is typing it in if a similar question has been asked and answered in the past. So you want to make sure you preload all of that stuff to have a better chance of attracting those potential customers. And I'll finish up with some fun examples here at the end. The first one, we see this a lot where customers will say, hey, what's your phone number? Here's my problem. I want to call and talk about it, even though the phone number is listed right there on the page, because again, they think it's instant messaging or chat, and it's not. And notice this was for an overheating engine, so it would have been lots of service work, but the dealership didn't answer. Or we see stuff like this that says, hey, your website sucks. And they say, yeah, I'm not a fan of it either. It's not even a question, but clearly that probably means that you're on a really crappy website and have a really crappy website that people don't like, and you should probably fix that. Or this is a fun one for dealership in Austin. It says, does this dealership have a body shop? And the answer is, don't go here. Look at the reviews. I had a horrible experience. They lie to you and everybody else. But notice there's 6 other answers. Google's going to display as the primary answer, the answer that has the most thumbs up. But notice when the dealership answers, it says owner in parentheses, and it's a much better answer, but nobody gave a thumbs up to this answer. So you have to monitor the Q&A section and make sure that you're keeping your answers upvoted to display as the primary answer to questions. Or this was a fun one for a hotel in Boston where I did a conference where somebody asked how the room numbers are ordered, and this guy just says alphabetically. And look at his smug little smile. He's super excited to answer that question sarcastically. But you got to pay attention because that's not great for potential customers. Or this is my all-time favorite one. It's for the London Eye, the big Ferris wheel on the Thames River in London. And the question says, do you have to wear a helmet? And the answer is, you don't have to, but you can if you wish. I believe Viking helmets are a popular choice. Now, the answer's been changed since then. The answer now says, yeah, it's something like, yeah, it's a good idea. I almost fell out, even though you can't fall out because it's an enclosed little car. But the point being, while this is funny and we laugh at it, it's not great for the customer experience for people that are thinking about going to this. So you always got to pay attention. So when you load your own questions and answer your own questions and keep your answers upvoted, it's a much better pre-site FAQ experience like this, and will help you stand out and attract more customers. So I know that was a lot. So thank you so much for taking that crazy ride with me this afternoon. Now you have the keys to success when it comes to showing up better in local searches. And when you're thinking about SEO and how you appear in search results, you won't go crazy and want to go jump off a cliff. And now you have the understanding and the knowledge and the know-how to be able to win the race to the top of local search results. So thanks so much. That was the Fast and Furious Guide to SEO for used car dealers. You can follow me on Twitter if you'd like, and there's my email address. If you have any questions, always feel free to answer or to email me questions, and I will answer them for you. Man, I cannot talk today. I'm so sorry. But at the end of the slides, there is a list of all the movies in order of release date. So if you want a cool list of car movies to watch later, pop me an email and I'd be happy to send you the deck. Or you can just, screen capture these two screens right here. Thanks so much for watching today, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for sticking around to watch the whole presentation. That's definitely all the time we've got for this week, so you know what that means. Put your hand on the screen right here. We totally just high-fived because you learned something awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of Local Search Tuesdays.